They are. They are, most decidedly, because of medicine, because of all the progress. But also, the pyramid before was there were young people at the top, and it went down to the older people. It's changed. There are so many older people at the top, which in itself brings a lot of problems for families, because whereas before families, their grandparents, their mother and father would come and live with them. That's not the case anymore because of space and time and people moving into the cities. So that whole situation where grandparents were getting older has changed. Grandparents are younger, they're vibrant, they have more cash at their disposal because they worked themselves, the grandparents.
Now, there was a medal you presented today to Rosemary Isola, who heads the local association. So what's the story behind that and the fact that apparently it took 10 years to prepare?
Yes, this is the medal. I don't know if you can see it, Michael, if you can do a close-up. This is the medal of Jesus with his grandparents. I believe that this is the first medal of its kind ever to be produced. And it took 10 years to conceive the medal, to try and visualize. You know, first of all, a lot of people didn't know that Jesus had grandparents, but he had. Joachim and Anne were the parents of our Holy Mother. And they were brought up in a family like any other family. So trying to conceive how they looked and what they were like was very difficult, and what the pose might be or what the look might be. And eventually Daniela Longo, who makes all the medals for the Vatican, for our Holy Father, she took on the final design. And so it was produced after 10 years, and it's been presented to our Holy Father, the Pope, and to, some cardinals, and today to Rosemary Isola, who is the head of the Grandparents Association here in Gibraltar. And I can honestly say that without her passion, her commitment, her desire to do the best for her family and her grandchildren, it would probably not be as far advanced as it is, because you have to be passionate, you have to be committed to it. There's no doubt that our younger generation, the faith is waning in the younger generation. A lot of our young people are falling away from the faith. And that's mainly because of the huge negativity that they've encountered in the last number of years from the media. Every time you put on the news, every time you open a newspaper, it's hammering the church. It's negative, negative, negative.
You mentioned there just now about the role the media plays and the negative stories. Does the church have a role to play as well?
No, absolutely. I mean, the church needs grandparents. It needs grandparents like they never needed grandparents before, because the grandparents are keeping the church doors open. They are the pillars of faith. They are the rock. It's like Gibraltar is the rock. Jesus gave the keys to the kingdom to Peter and said, take care of my sheep, feed my lambs. It's the same with grandparents. Here in Gibraltar or anywhere, the same thing applies. The church has gone through an incredibly difficult period, and it will do so in the future. It has done in the past. So many institutions, have gone through difficult times. And this is a time that when we really need to pass on our faith to our grandchildren, because the media is hostile to our faith. We're growing up in a culture where the media is hostile to our faith, and we're trying to encourage our children and to show them, and it's very difficult. And that's why you need associations like the Catholic Grandparents Association, because when we get together and we talk and support each other, we see the value, and we see that it's not hopeless, and we're not failing, and that we're not alone when all these things go wrong. Listen, Michael, you never stop loving your children, no matter what they do. And our church has to be inclusive. It has to love, absolutely love, as Pope Francis says, everything that happens in our family. Things don't turn out like we'd like them to sometimes. Not at all like we'd like them to. But that's life.
You mentioned there's something that I wanted to touch on, actually, about you never stop loving your children. And there has been a rift in some cases when it comes to faith and family values, when it comes to let's say the sexuality of a grandchild. They may have come out and been honest with their family about who they are and their place in the world. And while the church may not recognize that, families may be caught in the middle and say, well, you must rely on faith or you have to choose. I mean, how do you tackle that?
It's a very, very good question, particularly to myself at this point in time, because my grandson has just come out as gay. It wasn't a shock to me because I've seen through his growing up years that he could possibly be gay. And it's very easy to talk about these things, Michael, but when you have to live with them, it's a very different matter. I love my grandson. I believe that God made each and every one of us individually. He gave each one of us freedom to do what we should do. I really want my grandson to be well informed about the Catholic Church, to know exactly where he stands with his faith, because he is never ever going to need his faith as much as he needs it now. So I want to be absolutely sure that my grandson knows that there is a place for him in our Catholic faith, that there is a place for him in our family. As I said, it's easy to talk about these things, but when it actually, when you're actually dealing with it, or not dealing with it, but living with it and accepting it, it's so many families, so many people are gay. So many people these days have abortions. Grandparents, again, such a painful subject. Grandparents very often find this extremely difficult, like parents do. But the thing about grandparents, the gift they have is wisdom, experience, tolerance, mercy. Above all, mercy. You cannot judge anybody, Michael. You can't. You can't be the head of a family, the heart of the family, the soul of the family, and be judgmental. You have to be loving and caring and thoughtful.